All right, all right. It's a little bit after 3, and so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. If you're tuning in and you want to say hi in the comments, I love seeing who's out there and where you're tuning in from. So today is the 14th day that I've been doing this. So um, yesterday I really was kind of getting at sort of the meat of this journal, kind of what I wanted it to start to mean and say, and getting to that meaning is kind of a roundabout process, and I really do believe that meaning is in the making. And so today I'm gonna kind of go back to using some images, and there a couple of days ago I talked about wanting to use some cicada images. And so the cicada, if you're not familiar with it, it's a really big flying insect, and there's a species around here in Northern Virginia that comes out every year, and so it's like when you're in the middle of summer, you kind of hear them out there. But there's a they call it brood X, or and brood X, or brood 10, I think, because Roman numeral is the X. But they come out every 17 years, and they come out like millions and millions of them. And so they emerge from underground after 17 years. So it's really, really, yeah, it's just, I felt like I needed to kind of use them in my journal. So I did a quick online search, and I found several different kind of black and white kind of line drawings of them, put them in a document, and then printed them out on a laser printer. And so I made some black and white images. So I'm going to use that. Actually, I'm going to kind of revisit some of the techniques that I did a little bit earlier, some of the image transfers. I think that's going to be great. I don't know if I probably won't collage them in because I really like the way the image transfers work. And then maybe later, not today, but probably next week, I might use them in a different way. So anyway, just wanted to go ahead and kind of get started with that. So let me go ahead and switch over the camera. So again, if you're tuning in and you want to say hi, pop into the comments. So Francis is saying that it's like winter in London. We finally have like one of our first like really hot, almost summery days here in Northern Virginia. I had to put in the air conditioners, and I'm trying not to turn it on in here in the room. So anyway, but so I've got my images. I actually printed out quite a few pages of them, and so then that way I can use them. So I took this image and I made it a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. Same thing with, I have a side view and then a flying view. So I'll probably use several of these today. I know I want to use this one. I want to do a tape transfer of that. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and cut that one out right now. So I'll probably do the tape transfer and the solvent transfer, definitely. So anytime I do the tape, I'm going to start off with a nice rectangle. Grab, I have a piece of plastic that I use. Just a little bit easier to kind of work on the plastic. Grab my tape. And so looks like my tape might be long enough, wide enough to kind of cover that whole thing. All right, I was hoping I'd be able to get through this without turning the air conditioner on, but I think I'm going to need to. So if you hear this kind of, I have a portable air conditioner, so it might make a loud buzzing sound. And if that's really annoying, I can turn it off again, but it's getting pretty warm in here. It's a problem of living in an old house that does not have central air conditioning. And it's supposed to get up to like in the like low 90s today. All right. So Again, pulling out the tape, getting the tape on its sticky side up. So I don't know. Zoom does a pretty good job of sort of filtering out background noise, but sometimes with the really loud air conditioner or fan, sometimes you can hear it. So I don't know if that is bothering anybody or if people can even hear it. So anyway, try to take this, pull it out a little bit more. My tape wants to roll. Okay. So this is about the same width as my tape, which is going to be good. All right. And then pull that off. All right, that worked perfectly. It's just the right size. And then trim off the extra tape. All right. So the nice thing with this is I only need to use one piece of tape. And then just like before, I've got my little plastic spatula. Just going to rub it, make sure it's really stuck. And if you saw the last time that I did the image transfers, the tape transfers, I mentioned that you could do this with magazines. But you want to experiment to see how well it works with a magazine. It all kind of depends on paper. So sometimes certain years of a magazine work great. And then, you know, because sometimes people have old stashes of magazines. And then, you know, it's like you try it with from a different year and it doesn't quite work. Because they change up their printing process and the paper that they use. And then just have my water, soak it in there. Nice thing with the printer paper, it doesn't take long for it to really get saturated. You can even see how it's getting darker in that water. And so while that's soaking, what I was thinking was that image, I really like with this beetle, how I wrap the beetle around. So I'm thinking with the cicada with his wings open, I might do that. It might be kind of interesting around here somewhere. I'm thinking right here. But I could decide that in a minute. Okay, so that's probably soaked long enough. And this shouldn't have much of a problem getting all the paper off because there's not a whole lot of black. Again, where it's clear, where the paper was white, it should come completely off. And then just a little bit more water. Now here inside of the cicada body, I got to rub a little bit harder, but with the black and white laser print, and a photocopy could work too, as long as it's on like an actual like photocopy machine and not just printed on your all-in-one printer at home. Because your all-in-one printers tend to be inkjet. And so, yes, you can photocopy something, but the ink in an inkjet is water soluble. And if you try this, then the ink just wipes right off. So, but anyway, so I can be pretty rough with how I rub paper off. I like to rinse it so get all the paper pulp off of it. Now, if you do this a lot, so all this paper I just rubbed off, you can actually keep that, and then you can make paper out of it. I've done that in workshops where we've, multiple day workshops, and get a lot of people that are doing the tape transfers, and it's like, oh, check out what we can do. Okay. And then just like before, lay it down on the paper towel, and I'm just wiping my hand over, basically picking up the water off the tape and moving it out onto the paper towel. Okay. And so tape is sticky. I want to be careful. Let's get this plastic out of the way. So I've got my glue paper, got my glue stick, and I've got my image transfer. Now, like I said, I like how this one was wrapped around, so I'm going to do that. I think, thinking right there, have it wrap around. And I am using, even though the clear is sticky, where the black isn't sticky, so I just always use glue stick to make sure that these tape transfers stick down really well. Okay. So now I'm just kind of looking. So I've got, I made multiple copies of this, so I can use, if I like that winged out kind of cicada and I want to use it again, I can. I'm thinking about where I might use some of the others. I'm thinking I might wait. There's another technique that I'm going to do with tracing paper, and it's just a different way of putting images in. But I think I'll wait to do that. So maybe I'll do some image transfers back here where I have some things started, but I don't have a whole lot going on yet. So I'm going to use the solvent, and this is good to do it really at any stage. I could turn it to a blank page and do one of the solvent transfers on a blank page because I can build on top of it. Thinking here though, but I do have to be careful. This is a photocopy, so if I do a transfer here, it can bleed through depending on how much I use. So I really just kind of have to be aware that I think I'm going to use one of these profile ones. So Deirdre's asking a question about where to find things. Images, really, you can use images from anywhere. I mean, I have in this book, I have magazine images, and then I print images. I'm very lucky, very fortunate that I have a laser printer at the art center that I manage, and so I can print stuff out there. But before I had access to that, what I would do is I would take like this. I made this as a file on my computer, so I just pulled all these images off the computer. And so the same thing with like the brain image. I scan that brain image in, and I have a file on my computer that actually has, I think, 5 brains, 2 big ones and 3 small ones. And then I have another one like with the footprints. I have another one with the this beetle on it. I have another file with this. And so if you go to a office supply store like Office Depot, Staples, FedEx, any of those, they have copiers that you can use, and you can take a thumb drive, a flash drive, and that's what I do. I put it on a flash drive, and then I can go and I can make as many copies as I want. So that's one way to kind of think about images, especially this kind of images. And then the magnetic poetry, you used to be able to find that in like any bookstore would have different sets, and they had like a couple basic sets, and then they had like an artist specific set, and then so they had like some specific sets with certain themes. And so I probably had bought 5 or 6 sets over the years, but that was 20 years ago. And it's kind of like, are they even still out there? I don't even know if magnetic poetry is still being made. But the thing is, like, the way I did it was I took that magnetic poetry and I stuck it on a cookie sheet and scanned it in. And so now I have a file of that I can use. And again, I can go and print that out on a toner-based printer or photocopy. I think I got a little too much of this solvent. Hopefully it doesn't soak through too much. But the magnetic poetry, you might be able to find new sets, like I said, maybe a bookstore, try Amazon. But I'm also thinking you might be able to find it like used in places. But if not, you could sort of replicate that idea with like on the computer. So you could have a little rectangle printed out, or like, have a rectangle that creates the black rectangle around the word, and then you have your word inside of it. There's probably different ways you could create that, and then you could specify what word you wanted. All right, so with that text paper and how thick this is, it doesn't look like it soaked through, but that's really cool. The interesting is that the cicadas are about this big in real life. So that one's about life size. That one's a little bit big. So these two are about life size. So if you're not familiar with cicadas, they're big insects. They don't bite or sting, so they're pretty harmless. But around here, like the birds, the animals just will gorge themselves because millions and millions of them come out. All right. No, actually, let's do it right here. I really like the solvent transfer because it's not super black. And by doing it so early on the page, um, I can see it, and then I can make sure I don't really add too much over it that's going to completely cover it up. But yeah, it gives me a couple different ideas, couple different things going on. So, Carol, the solvent that I'm using is a household solvent called Goof Off, and it has xylene in it, and that's what makes it really work really well. You can also use a chart pack blender marker, and this is from their chart packs ad markers. But this is like $4 for one of these, and it's usually like $3 or $4 for an entire can. This can is old. This can's like 15 years old, and I still have some in there that I've been using all this time. But xylene is the uh, chemical that really helps the image transfer. Acetone does to some degree. Some people use Citrusol, which is a citrus-based solvent, not as stinky and not as volatile. So this stuff is really stinky, and of course it comes with all these warnings. So that's the English, that's the Spanish. So yeah, it's really nasty stuff. But a lot of people have it because it's a paint remover, adhesive remover. So, um, but anyway, so I've used it in other places too. Okay. Just trying to think if I wanted to do another. I'm kind of thinking it'd be really interesting at some point to do a whole bunch of them on a page, or maybe have them lead up. But I think that's something I'm going to hold off on. Maybe do that later. So I think I might do it for now for the image transfers. So I'm just kind of looking back through and just trying to decide what else I want to do. I had the thought like, I've done more image transfers. It might be interesting to go back and find more images, like magazine images and things to put in, or black and white photos. Um, so I think what I want to do, I'm not going to take time now and kind of dig through my stash. You don't need to sit here and watch me digging through a box of images. I can do that maybe before tomorrow's live stream. But I was just looking at this one, and this one's really kind of looking kind of cool. What I'm thinking is I want to go back now and start to maybe make these lines bolder on the face, make it really stand out, and um, that will just give me some time to kind of think about stuff, because yeah, I had only thought about using the image transfers today, and I wasn't sure how long that was going to take. So now it's like, okay, I'm not really sure what I want to do next, but this is a good time to kind of come in and just go around and make these lines bolder. So this is often something I kind of do when I feel like something's getting resolved or being close to being finished. It's a great way of emphasizing and making things pop out. But it doesn't have to be at the end of a page, like when something's uh, being finished up. I can really do it anytime. And I kind of sketched this in real quick, and there are some lines that are a little bit wonky and sketchy. So this will give me a chance to go in and just neaten things up. And just that thick black line makes that really just pop out, stand out more. So maybe I want to make it just a little bit thicker, since it's kind of the line around the face. So my approach to journaling is really one of layering, but I don't really have a specific process for that layering. I use certain materials and layer that up, but I don't have a process like, okay, first I'm going to do watercolor, second I'm going to do collage, third I'm going to do this. It all kind of gets mixed up, and I jump around, I go back and forth, and I do that even in my big journal, like my kind of everyday everything book. Just gonna do a little jagged line to symbolize eyelashes, and then really make it look like that eye is closed. Oh, sorry about that. I think I accidentally knocked my cord from my video. All right, let me make a couple adjustments. Sorry about that. As I bump my cord for the web camera that looks down, and it kind of reset everything. There we go. Working in a little book is very different than working in a very large book. So my everyday journal, my everything journal, my kind of typical journal is 11 by 14, and this book is 3.5 by 5.5. So it's basically 7 inches this way, 5.5 inches this way when it's open. That big book is 22 inches wide and 14 inches tall whenever I have it open. So it's such a different experience. And so I will take this moment to shamelessly self-promote myself and mention that I do have an online class starting on Saturday that's all about small books. But instead of just working in a small book like I am here, we're going to make some small books. Just going to go through a process of a simple process of making a very simple book, but that can really be any size. So it could even be smaller than what this is. So if you're interested, you can always find that on my website or on my Facebook page. And the nice thing with my classes is that I do the live Zoom. So every Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern until 3 p.m. I do it live. But if you can't make the live classes, I record them and I put them on a private video server. Actually, it's a platform, Vimeo, which is kind of a rival of YouTube, but I can password protect the videos, and then that way you can have access anytime to the recorded videos. All right, so that face really starts to kind of stand out. All right, let's go. So what I'm going to do now is use some of the smaller ones. Actually, I'm going to use the super fine. And so I'm going to just put some details in some patterns in some of these shapes. Just putting a series of parallel lines that help kind of define that side of the nose. And so I've got these really dark lines here. I got the dark line around the word shadow. And then I can I'm going to just take this black pen around the little squares here. The only problem with using ink pens on a surface that you've done a lot of mixed media on is that sometimes it picks up the materials. So as I was using this pen, it's a brand new one, so I know it has plenty of ink in it. But what I found was like, oh, it wasn't drawing that well, and that's because I might be picking up some of the water soluble pigment that's there, sometimes glue. That's the only kind of danger of using pens and ink. I think I'm picking up a lot of glue kind of going over top of this map that's there, and it's kind of smearing a little bit. Just take a scrap. There it goes. So this little spread starts to kind of have a more finished feel, but it's not really finished. But you know, just thickening up some of those lines there. And of course, I was like looking at these spaces here and like, oh, the little windows, and then could I cut little windows in there? I haven't done. I mean, I have the cutout there. I've got a cutout there. So I'm kind of just debating if I want to cut these out. There's nothing too major. Maybe this footprint, but I don't think that's a real big deal. Maybe we'll leave that, decide that later. Just flipping through, seeing if there's like anything else that I want to add right now. Just had this notion, I was flipping through this, was like, oh, this needs something else. So I'm going to take my really fine, this is a XS, and extra super fine, I think is what it stands for. And I just want to do some lines. Not quite straight. Maybe I'll continue a couple of these lines over. So Frances is asking in the comments about Zentangling because the face kind of reminded her of that. I mean, I've done it. I've done a little bit of that before. I've never gotten really into it where like developing all the different patterns and things. I use some very standard patterns, the parallel lines, basically hatching, crossing lines, cross hatching. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot with like a whole bunch of different patterns, but the patterns and the filling in is a little bit more to give it some value and a little bit of 3 dimensions. I mean, I'll probably add some more to it. I love going back with like a white gel pen. I'll probably do that a little bit later. But yeah, just sort of flipping through, seeing what's what. So I have the crack, the crevice, the crevasse, and I definitely want to bring that in into other pages because right now that's the only place that it is. So that's something to kind of think about. I'm not going to do that right now, but that is definitely something I want to keep in mind. I like the little added touches of the cicadas. And even here, I want to start thinking about, I've got this circle. So to have something that's right there might be really interesting. So I got to figure out what that's going to be. I mean, I could use one of the cicadas, you know, that might be really interesting to have that, like the flying one there or something. But maybe since I use my photo of me, maybe that becomes use another photo of myself. I don't know. But yeah, but I think I'm getting to a good stopping point. So yeah, so day number 14. I'll be back tomorrow for day number 15. And if you're interested in the small, it's called Small Books, Mini Journals, and Zines. Is the class that starts this Saturday. And like I said, you can do it live or you can do it more like a self-paced kind of workshop as well. But if you're interested in that, you can check that out on my website or here on my Facebook page. I definitely have links to it. But yeah, so tomorrow I'm kind of thinking, what was I thinking? Oh, definitely images. That's what it was. So I think I'm going to dig through and find some images, some magazines and things to kind of put in there. But anyway, really appreciate you spending some time with me. And I know some of you are kind of just working along and kind of doing your own thing. And really appreciate those of you that have shared images of what you've been doing. So anyway, really appreciate you being here. I will be back tomorrow. So anyway, oh, before I just saw Kirja's. So yes, this is well, at least that's what my wife told me, that the chemical compound is caffeine. It's one of my favorite shirts. I just like it because it's just very subtle. But anyway, all right. So yeah, so I'll be back tomorrow, and I hope you can join me. And until then, have a great day. And as always, happy creating.